The sky above Valyria burned with its own private sunset, a sullen red smoldering behind the jagged teeth of the 14 flames. Plumes of ash climbed into the heavens like the breath of some buried god, smearing the light, turning it into blood. Between those pillars of smoke, dragons moved. Great black silhouettes and glimmers of gold and silver and green, wings beating the heavy air, shadows sliding across the fused stone streets far below. From the highest terrace of the Archon's palace, Maresso Varloris stood at the edge of the world he ruled and let the hot wind press against his face. His robes snapped around him, white and wine red, embroidered with 1,000 tiny dragons picked out in silver thread. Beside him, a man only a little younger, in darker armor chased with fire steel, rested his gloved hands on the balcony rail. A dragon's head reared from each of his shoulders, worked in black iron. Pale hair, almost colorless in this strange light, fell in a straight sheet down his back. "Your city grows more restless with every season, Archon," said Vaeron Targaryen, High Dragonlord of the Western Fleets. His Valyrian was the pure, liquid form, vowels soft as silk. Even the stones seemed to tremble. Maresso's mouth curved, not quite into a smile. "Stones do not tremble. Men do. And men tremble because they remember they are small." Below them, the city seethed. Avenues of night-black glass crowded with slaves in iron collars, merchants in striped Associ silks, lesser dragonlords carried in litters whose poles bent under the weight of fused stone thrones. A dragon swooped low over the plaza of the 40 families, stirring dust and panic. Its rider laughed, reins loose in one mailed hand. "The omens trouble you," Vaeron said quietly. "They trouble my priests." Maresso lifted a hand, and in the distance, beyond the city, the sea lay like spilled obsidian. Even from here, he could see the faint outline of ships moving upon it, tiny motes under the shadow of a circling beast. They mutter that the world must soon be remade. They see darkness from the sunset lands, cold, dead things walking. "Prophets fill their days with shadows," Vaeron said. "I fill mine with charts and sails and dragonfire. We have scoured the summer sea, broken the Giscari remnants, bent Volantis and Lys to our will. No darkness has withstood us yet." Maresso's eyes, pale as old marble, did not leave the west. Yet Vaeron, a small word for a vast possibility. He tapped his fingertips against the rail once. "Tell me again of the black glass island, the one that drinks the sun at dusk." "Dragonstone." Vaeron's gaze followed the Archon's. "Our outpost at the edge of the sunset sea." A finger stretched toward Westeros. He paused. "And toward their wall." "Ah, yes." Maresso's voice softened. "The wall, ice to answer fire, old as any of our runes. My priests wake screaming with its image in their minds, and with things that move beyond it." He turned at last, his cloak snapping in the hot wind. "It is time, I think, that fire and ice looked upon one another without dreams between them. In the heart of Valyria, where no slave ever walked and even lesser dragonlords moved softly, the temple of the 40 burned without visible flame. Obsidian pillars rose like frozen smoke around a central hall, their surfaces veined with strange colors that shifted when no one looked. Along the walls, glass candles burned, not with fire, but with an eerie green radiance that pierced the gloom and left no shadows. High Priestess Nellis Varloris stood barefoot before the basin, her white robes belted with a chain of dragonglass fragments that clicked faintly when she moved. Her hair fell loose down her back, shot through with threads of ash gray, and her eyes did not blink as she stared into the churning light. The basin's contents were neither water nor fire. They moved like molten metal, thick and slow, reflecting nothing of the hall around them. Instead, they showed a sky the color of old bone and a vast, white wall stretching from horizon to horizon, jagged like a frozen wave. Upon its crest, tiny dark figures moved, bells on a distant shore. Beyond it, Nellis shivered despite the heat. There was only a rising blizzard and shadows that were not shadows at all. "The dead walk beyond that wall," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but the hall carried it. They wait. They watch. Behind her, boots scrape stone. "You speak of Westeros as if it mattered, cousin," Vaeron said. His reflection appeared in the basin for an instant, warped and elongated. "They are a patchwork of bickering kings, clinging to old gods and older grudges. Kings burn," Nelly said. "What waits beyond their wall does not. Look." Reluctantly, Vaeron stepped closer. The smell of the basin's light curled into his nostrils like smoke and cold iron. He gazed down and saw the wall, the white plain beyond it, and then something moving toward the barrier with a terrible, inexorable patience. Tall shapes, armor rimed with frost, eyes burning a pale, hateful blue. A faint ringing came from them, like distant ice cracking. Vaeron's throat tightened. "Sorcerer's tricks." "Truth," Nelly said sharply. "Older than us. Older than your fleets, your dragons, your pride." Her gaze did not leave the vision. "The gods have given us a gift, Vaeron. Fire, wings, and the will to use them. But we have always looked east and south, to lands that beg to be broken. We must look to the Sunset Sea, to the island of Dragonglass and the kingdoms that sleep behind it. If we do not, those shadows will come to us, and all our fire will only light our own pyre." Vaeron's jaw tightened. He watched the slow approach of that white storm, the way even the sun seemed to pale in its path. "The Archon will not like any tale that does not end with a new province paying tribute." "Then let him think in coin," Nellis murmured. "You think in sails. I think in centuries." Her hand hovered over the basin, fingers trembling. "Send your dragons west, Vaeron Targaryen. Better we choose the time we meet the dark than wait for it to choose us." The war room of the western fleets smelled of salt and hot stone. A single long window opened onto a sheer drop and the heaving gray-blue of the narrow sea below. But most of the chamber's light came from the braziers and the glowing veins within the table at its center. The map was an old work, older than any man in the room. A fused stone likeness of two continents, Essos sprawling on one side like a dragon's body, Westeros a hooked, stubborn head jutting toward the Sunset Sea. Dragons of gold and obsidian marked cities and strongholds. Volantis, Myr, Lys, the disputed lands. At the far western edge, clustered like seeds at the tip of a spear, three were grouped together. One upon a wolf-shaped land, one upon a long island shielded by jagged rocks, one upon a pale strip labeled in ancient Valyrian runes as simply the Wall. Vaeron moved a ringed hand, the firelight catching on his armor. "Dragonstone is held," he said. "Our family has watched the sunset from its battlements for 150 years. Its forges give us dragonglass enough for spearheads and blades. Should we wish to test this northern threat, the priests whimper about. And yet we have not," muttered Lord Celadres Euhorus, his lip curled. "We have used it as a mooring post for our fleets and a vault for our hordes while we flayed the Giscari and humbled the Roiner." "Roiner," another lord snorted. "River rats and sand snakes. They fled to Dorne. Let them fight our battles with Westeros if it comes to that." Vaeron's eyes narrowed. "You mistake me. I have no love for Westeros, but the Archon sees beyond a ledger. We speak now not only of tribute and ports, but of omens." He tapped Dragonstone's little dragon with a knuckle. "This is our hand upon their sea. If we close that hand, we may seize all behind it. Or we may lose everything." The others fell silent. Beyond the window, a dragon screamed somewhere in the volcanic haze, a bright, savage sound that sent motes of ash drifting from the ceiling. "One of my granddaughter's dreams of snow," Vaeron said at last, surprising them. "She wakes with frost on her lashes and the taste of iron on her tongue. She speaks of a wall of ice and dead men who do not bleed. The priests say her blood is close to the old magics." His mouth tightened. "The Archon listens when my house speaks of the West. He means to act." "How?" Celadres asked warily. Vaeron moved his hand again, sliding a larger dragon piece from Valyria's coast toward the narrow sea. "We do not yet speak of conquest," he said. "Not openly. We speak of envoys, fleets, offers that are not truly offers." His gaze flicked toward Dragonstone and then to the crude wolf's head of the north. We will go to their kings with honey on our tongues and fire in the sky. If they kneel, we gain allies against the dark. If they do not..." His fingers closed slowly into a fist above the map. "Then Westeros will be our anvil when the dead come, whether they wish it or not." Across the narrow sea, on a river that smelled of salt and old secrets, the citadel of Oldtown dreamed of knowledge and had no wish to wake. Its towers rose into a soft, mist-streaked night, bannerless and austere, their gray stone catching what little moonlight the clouds allowed. In the rookery, ravens shifted in their sleep and muttered nonsense to one another. In a high, windowless chamber not far from the high tower's shadow, 3 glass candles burned green. Archmaester Marwyn had not lit them. That troubled him more than the light itself. The first time he had seen one flare of its own accord years ago, he had nearly dropped it. Now he watched it with his heavy jaw set, his dark eyes narrowed, as if it were some beast that might leap. "They were cold as corpses yesterday," Maester Luwin said, voice barely more than a whisper. He was younger, his link of Valyrian steel still bright among the duller metals of his chain. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the chill. "I touched them myself," Marwyn grunted. "Perhaps they heard the stories old men tell themselves about lost arts and took pity on us." He leaned forward, the candlelight painting green hollows under his cheekbones. "Or perhaps the world remembers how to speak to us when it has cause." Between the candles, a map lay unrolled, its edges held down by bronze paperweights shaped like ravens. The ink was faded in places, but the lines were clear. Essos on one side, Valyria a smoking wound upon it, the narrow sea, Westeros with its familiar jagged shape. Near the bottom edge, someone had inked a crude wolf's head, years ago in a bored moment. Luwin recognized his own hand and felt his throat tighten. "What do you see?" Marwyn asked. Luwin swallowed. The candlelight seemed to thicken, stretching across the map like mist. For a heartbeat, he saw only green and shadow. Then, slowly, shapes began to form. A city of spires and black glass, lit from below by molten fire, wings crossing a blood-red sky. Then the perspective swung, as if some great eye had turned, and he saw water dark, endless, broken by a single island shaped like a claw. "Dragonstone," he whispered. "Look further," Marwyn said. The mist rolled, carrying his sight west over a churning gray sea. It broke on a rocky coast, ran up rivers like fingers. He saw a harbor thronged with ships, a bleak castle whose towers clawed at the sky. King's Landing, though the sight was blurred, as if the city did not quite agree with the way it was being seen. Then further, faster, until the land was only a smear of green and brown, and at last there was only white. The wall rose before him, vast and terrible. His breath caught in his chest. For an instant, something moved at its base. A thin line of darkness, like ants at the foot of a mountain. Blue glints, a sound like a distant horn. Luwin tore his gaze away, heart hammering. The candles still burned, steady and cold. "Valyrian sorcery reaching across the sea," Marwyn said softly. "Or something else. Either way, it stirs. The old powers do not wake for nothing." "What can we do?" Luwin asked. He thought of Winterfell, of the stark words, "Winter is coming," and of the boy with the solemn eyes who listened too carefully when his lord father spoke. Jon the bastard, always on the edge of things, watching. Marwyn rolled up the map with careful hands. "We can send ravens," he said, "to the wall, to Winterfell, to King's Landing, to men who still remember that the world is older than their wars." He glanced at the candles again. "And we can pray that when dragons return to our skies, they remember they were not only made to burn cities." The Iron Throne loomed like a threat even when its king slouched in it. Blades twisted together, half-melted and cruel, rose around Robert Baratheon's thick shoulders as he shifted, metal scraping softly beneath him. The hall smelled of incense and stale sweat, and of the sweet red wine in his goblet. "Again," he said, waving the sealed parchment at the messenger as if it were an insect. "Say it again, slowly this time. And if you piss yourself, I'll have Ser Barristan use you to polish his armor. The courier swallowed. He was young, with the deep tan of a man who had spent more of his life on decks than on land. His hands trembled as he pointed to the dark seal in Robert's fist. A dragon picked out in some black metal that caught the light without quite reflecting it. Your Grace, the fleet stands in Blackwater Bay. Ships like nothing I've seen. Black hulls that shine like stone, their prows carved like dragons' heads. And above them, he broke off, eyes darting to the open doors at the far end of the throne room, where bright daylight and the faint roar of the crowd spilled in. You saw them, my king. We all did. Robert's jaw worked. For a heartbeat, the hall remembered the man he had been, the warhammer in his hands, the easy, brutal joy of battle. Then he snorted and took a swallow of wine. Big lizards, he said. I've hunted worse. Laughter, thin and uncertain, rippled through the court. Cersei Lannister sat stiff and golden at his side, one hand on the arm of her lesser throne. Her green eyes had not left the seal. They come as envoys, she said. Envoys do not bring 100 ships and dragons, unless their offers are not truly offers. Varys inclined his bald head. The message names their leader as Princess Daenerys of House Targaryen, he said in his soft, unctuous voice. Daughter of Vaeron Targaryen, High Dragonlord of the Western Fleets, and blood of the 40 families of Valyria. Targaryen, Robert repeated, as if tasting something bitter. The name still had the power to pull years off his face. A hotbed of them in the old stories, and we thought ourselves lucky to be rid of the last. His gaze slid to Ned Stark, standing at the base of the throne with his gray eyes steady. And you, Ned? What does the North say to dragons in our harbor? The North remembers, Ned said quietly. We remember burned kings and burned children, but we also remember the long night, when fire held back the dark. He met Robert's gaze without flinching. Ask them why they have come. Ask them what they see in their fires, and ask what they demand in return for helping us survive what their priests see. Bah! Robert tossed the goblet aside, wine splashing across the steps. Always winter and shadows with you Starks. But his hand tightened on the Valyrian seal. Very well, let the dragon princess in. Let us hear what song she's come to sing. In the yard at Winterfell, breath steamed in the cold air, hanging around the boys like ghosts. The sky was the flat, colorless gray that came before snow, and the wind carried the smell of the weirwood grove. Cold earth and old sap, faint and clean. Robb Stark grinned as he came on, wooden sword raised. Jon Snow met him, their blades cracking together in a flurry of blows that sent splinters flying. They moved well together, as they did in most things. Robb with his easy confidence and quick feet, Jon with a watchful patience that made him seem older than his years. Keep your shield up, called Ser Roderick, stroking his whiskers. Your arm will tire before a real sword does, Snow. Yes, Ser, Jon grunted, shifting his grip. Robb feinted left and came in hard on his right side. But Jon's shield was there, the impact jarring up his arm. He let the momentum carry him, turned, and tapped Robb between the shoulders. Dead, he panted. Robb cursed, good-natured. Only because you fight like a southerner, he said, laughing as they broke apart. All angles and clever feet. And you fight like a Northman, Jon said, straight at the enemy. Sooner or later you'll find one who doesn't stand still for that. Across the yard, Lord Eddard Stark watched them with his hands clasped behind his back, his breath misting. The lines at his eyes deepened as he smiled, faint, but there. When the raven's cry cut through the clang of wood, his head turned at once. The bird came in low over the walls, wings beating the cold air, and settled on the perch beside the yard gate. Its feathers were dusted with frost. Maester Luwin was already moving toward it, his chain clinking softly. From Oldtown, he murmured, taking the scroll from the raven's leg. The wax was black, stamped with a tower and a key. Glass candles, he added under his breath, as if that explained the weight he felt. Ned's smile vanished like hoarfrost under a boot. "Walk with me," he said. They left the ring of wooden swords and boys' laughter behind, crossing the yard to the covered walk. Snowflakes began to drift down, soft as ash. Luwin broke the seal. As he read, his brow furrowed. "Archmaester Marwyn writes of visions," he said at last. "The glass candles burning in the citadel, unlit by any hand. Dragons in the narrow sea. A Valyrian fleet in Blackwater Bay, led by a Princess Daenerys of House Targaryen." His voice lowered. "And of the wall, my lord. Of things moving beyond it that should not move at all." Ned's hand tightened on the stone parapet until his knuckles whitened. He looked toward the north, where the sky was a deeper gray, as if something vast moved behind the clouds. "The south will see dragons and think only of crowns," he said. "We will see the wall and think of winter." He closed his eyes briefly, and in the darkness behind them he saw his sister's face, younger than his own now, her eyes fierce even as she lay dying. "Promise me, Ned. Send back to Oldtown," he said quietly. "Tell them the north hears, and send a raven to the wall. If something comes with this winter, they must watch." He opened his eyes. "And tell Rob and Jon to keep their swords close. The world grows stranger, Maester. I smell change on the wind." Daenerys Targaryen had been born to the sound of dragons. That was what her father told her, at least. He said that on the night she came squalling into the world. The 14 flames had flared high, and the dragons in their eyries had taken to the air in a storm of wings. She did not remember that, but she believed it. The sound of rustling scales and beating wings had been the backdrop of her childhood, as common as the crackle of the ever-burning fires or the distant rumble of the earth. Now those sounds seemed louder, sharper, or perhaps it was only that she listened differently. Silverix coiled on the balcony rail, pale as new bone, her wings mantled against the ashen wind. She was not the largest dragon in Valyria, nor the oldest, but there was a quickness in her that made older riders envious. Her scales caught the dying light and threw it back in hints of blue and lilac, like the inside of a seashell. When she turned her head, one golden eye met Daenerys's gaze with unnerving intelligence. "Do you hear them?" Dany asked softly, resting her hands on the fused stone rail. The stone was warm, faintly pulsing with the heat that rose from the earth's wounded heart. "Not the dragons, the men." From this height, the city was a mosaic. She could not make out faces, but she could see the way the crowds moved. Tides shifting in the streets, eddies around the plaza of the 40, the way torches gathered at the harbor where the new fleet lay ready. There was an eagerness in the air, bitter as tannin. The people of Valyria had always taken pride in their wars, but she had never felt them lean so collectively toward the same horizon before. Silverix huffed, a puff of steam curling from her nostrils. Below, a dragon rose from some lower terrace, its rider's banner snapping in the wind. Others answered, wing beats stirring the air. Behind her, the door opened. "You should not be out here without armor," her brother Viserys said, his voice sharp. He stepped onto the balcony in a flurry of pale silk and jangling chains, his own hair bound back with silver wire. "What if a cinder falls? What if Silverix startles and—" "She does not startle," Daenerys said, without looking back. "And neither do I." Viserys came to stand beside her, his mouth a thin line. For a moment, they watched the city together. "Father met with the Archon again today," he said at last. "The priests have whispered enough. The 40 have agreed. The Sunset Sea will burn." Daenerys's fingers tightened on the rail. "Westeros. 7 kingdoms," Viserys said, with a contemptuous little shrug. 7 crowns that never learned the meaning of the word empire. They bend their knees to fat men on uncomfortable chairs and pray to trees and statues. He smiled without humor. "Soon they will pray to us instead. Or curse us," Daenerys said. He turned, frowning. "You are Valyrian. Fire is your birthright. You should be glad to see the world reminded of it." She thought of the dreams that had woken her on too many nights lately, the feel of cold under her bare feet, the howl of a wind that carried no ash, only fine dry snow, a wall of ice, and a boy standing upon it with a sword in his hand and doubt in his eyes. Each time she woke with the taste of iron on her tongue, and the horizon in the west seemed to pull at her like a hook. "I will ride where our house commands," she said at last. "But there is more in the west than crowns, Viserys. Father knows that. The priests know it. Even the Archon, for all his talk of tribute and ports, hears something in his dreams." Viserys' hand tightened convulsively on the balcony rail, then relaxed. "Dreams," he sneered. "Let priests and cowards hide in them. We will ride above them." He reached out, stroking Silverix's neck with a proprietary air that made the dragon's eye slit in annoyance. "We will show them what it means that Valyria never fell." Silverix's wings twitched. Daenerys looked out over the city one last time, then west, beyond the invisible line of horizon where sea met sky. Somewhere out there, a boy she did not know stood in snow he had never escaped, and dragons crossed the narrow sea in the waking visions of men who did not sleep well. The world, she thought, was moving toward something, whether any of them were ready or not. The hall of the 40 families was older than the palace above it. The stone there was darker, and if one listened too closely one could almost hear the distant, grinding heartbeat of the earth. Dragons were everywhere, clawing up the columns, coiling around the thrones, snarling from the base of the central dais. Their eyes were rubies and onyx and polished dragonglass, catching the lamplight in 100 pinpricks. Daenerys stood in the center of the ring, her hands at her sides, her spine straight. The armor she wore was ceremonial rather than practical. Scaled leather dyed the blue of deep water, a breastplate chased with silver in the shape of a 3-headed dragon, but it felt heavy all the same. Before her, carved from a single block of fused stone, lay Westeros. The map was cruder than the one Vaeron used in his war room, its mountains too sharp, its forests mere ripples, but its shape was unmistakable. Along the eastern shore, tiny pieces of gold and obsidian marked ports and castles. Dragonstone, King's Landing, Gulltown, Oldtown. "The priests say the dark will come through here," said an old woman's voice, sharp as a knife. Lady Illyria Orion leaned forward on her throne, her pale hair thin but her gaze still clear. She tapped one long nail on the north, near a tiny nub of stone that jutted out like a broken tooth. "Through cold and snow and old magic that does not answer our calls. We say there are softer doors," rumbled Lord Gasdry's Votarian, his broad shoulders filling his throne. "Ports that open for coin. Kings who open their gates for the promise of our protection." His finger traced the south, the riverlands, the reach. "We can make the sunset see our lake before we ever set eyes on this wall of ice. But if we own the lake and not the shore behind it," Nellis Varloris said from her place among the lesser seats, "we will have bought a drowning for ourselves." Maresso Varloris, on the high throne opposite the entrance, lifted a hand for silence. The murmur of competing voices fell away reluctantly. "We will not thrash like children between fear and greed," he said. "We are Valyria. We have held the world for 1,000 years. We will hold it for 1,000 more, if we do not grow stupid now." His gaze slid to Daenerys. "House Targaryen has long kept watch on the Dragonstone. They know the shape of the western coasts better than any of us, and their blood has given us dreams worth heeding." Vaeron stood at Daenerys' shoulder, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. He did not touch her, but his presence was a weight. "You have seen snow in your sleep, child," Maresso said. "Ice and shadows, and a boy on a wall with a sword in his hand." Daenerys inclined her head. "Yes, you will go to Westeros," the Archon said. "Not as a conqueror, not yet, as our voice." A faint smile tugged at one corner of his mouth. "Offer them friendship, offer them protection, offer them trade in obsidian and fire, and if they refuse, learn their strengths and their weaknesses. Learn which of their kings are wolves and which are sheep." Vaeron's hand closed briefly on her shoulder, fingers strong. "You will not go alone," he murmured. "Silverix will fly above you, Our legions will ride the waves beside you. And if any kingling dares to insult you, they will see what it means that you are Targaryen, and Valyria stands behind you." Daenerys' heart beat slow and heavy. She looked down at the map, at the tiny dragon perched upon the wolfish land in the north, at the little mark for the wall. Somewhere on that stone line, perhaps at this moment, a boy leaned on a sword, breath steaming in the cold. Somewhere beyond it, the dark moved. "I will go," she said. Her voice did not shake. "I will speak for Valyria, and I will listen for the world." On Dragonstone, the air tasted of salt and old fire. The castle crouched upon its volcanic island like a beast waiting to spring, its towers and battlements shaped as dragons frozen mid-roar. The sea crashed itself to foam against the rocks below, but inside the great hall that had once echoed to Valyrian voices, there was only silence and the soft hiss of burning logs. Melisandre of Ashai stood before the brazier and watched the flames. They were not ordinary flames. She had fed them rare oils and powders from the east, costly things that smoked green and blue before vanishing. Now the fire burned high and clear, its heat pressing against her face, making sweat bead at her hairline. "Show me," she whispered in the tongue of shadows. "Show me the prince that was promised. Show me the sword that will drive back the night." The flames writhed. For a moment they were only fire, orange and red and gold. Then something in them changed and they became shapes. A city of black stone and spires, encircled by mountains that spat fire. Dragons turned through a bloody sky. Above them, a girl rode, her hair pale as frost despite the heat, her eyes like amethysts. Her dragon's wings beat as it rose above a forest of masts, each ship bearing a dragon-headed prow. "Daenerys," Melisandre breathed. The name tasted of smoke. "Blood of the dragon, child of fire." The flames shifted. Now she saw a wall of ice, impossibly high, its face blue and white and full of trapped light. Upon its crest, men moved, tiny, dark. One turned, and she saw his face as if he stood before her. Black hair, gray eyes, a stubborn set to his jaw that reminded her of old kings in older tales. Jon Snow. He turned back to the north, where something moved in the storm. Tall shapes, thin and terrible, their eyes burning with a cold blue light that made the fire's heat falter for an instant. The images twisted, folding in on one another. Dragon over fleet, boy on wall, dead men walking. The flames crackled, spat a burst of sparks, and for a heartbeat everything was swallowed in darkness. Melisandre stepped back, heartbeat rattling against her ribs. In the silence, she heard the distant boom of waves and, faintly, the cry of a dragon far above. "So," she murmured, "fire that never fell, and a boy who was never meant to be." She tilted her head, listening to some inner echo of the flames. The Lord of Light plays a deep game. Behind her, bootsteps sounded on stone. Davos Seaworth stood in the doorway, his face lined, his expression wary. "You've been at those fires all night, my lady," he said. "The men whisper." "Let them whisper," she said. Her gaze did not leave the dying flames. "Soon they will have more to talk of than a red woman and her fires. Dragons cross the sea, Ser Davos. The dead stir in the north. The Game of Thrones you men love to play has always been a child's board set upon a table in a room with a locked door. The door is opening." He swallowed. "And which king will you say is promised, then?" Melisandre smiled, slow and secret. "Perhaps king is the wrong word," she said. "Perhaps we will need something else. Someone else." In the embers, a flicker of pale hair and gray eyes chased one another, like reflections in disturbed water. Fire and ice, blood of dragon and blood of wolf. The flames are never simple. Dusk lay upon the narrow sea like a bruise. The sun had slipped behind a bank of clouds low on the western horizon, staining their undersides a deep, ominous red, but its last light still caught the crests of the waves, turning them to copper. The Valyrian armada moved through that fading glow like a school of predators. Hulls of fused stone and blackened oak cut the water cleanly, their dragon-headed prows throwing spray. Sails the color of smoke bellied with the wind, marked with the sigils of the 40 families. Coiling worms of fire, three-headed beasts, stylized flames. Between the ships, long, low galleys slid like knives, their oars a steady drumbeat. Above it all, the dragons flew. Some were vast, old creatures whose scales had dulled with centuries, their wings spanning twice the length of the largest ships below. Others were younger, leaner, their colors bright, emerald, bronze, blue as deep water. They wheeled and dipped, skimming the wave-tops, then climbing high to ride the upper winds, shadows passing over the fleet. At their head flew Silverix. The pale dragon rode the evening air with lazy power, her wings hardly moving, letting the currents bear her. The last light made her scales glow faintly, as if she carried a piece of the sinking sun on her back. Daenerys sat in the saddle between Silverix's shoulders, hands light on the harness. The wind tore at her hair, whipping the silver-gold strands back from her face, but her eyes were steady on the west. From up here, the fleet looked almost small toys on a dark pond. The men upon them were smaller still, their shouts and songs lost beneath the rush of wind and the occasional roar of a dragon. Yet she knew their fears and their hunger traveled with her. Some thought only of plunder and glory. Others whispered of omens, of whispers from priests and dreams that clung like cobwebs. Behind her, another dragon drew closer, its rider lifting a hand. Vaeron's voice reached her like a faint echo. "Another day," he called, "and we will see their shores." Daenerys did not turn. She could already see something. Not the land itself, not yet, but the sense of it, a darker line where sea met sky. Westeros, the 7 kingdoms, their crowns and quarrels, their old gods and new. The wall, somewhere far to the north, unseen but looming in every dream. "You have doubts?" Vaeron said, quieter now as his mount held formation beside Silverix. She considered lying. "I have questions," she said instead. "We go to offer them fire against a darkness they have not yet seen. We bring that fire on the backs of dragons and the hulls of warships. Is it a gift, if it must be accepted on our terms, or not at all?" His mouth tightened. In the dying light, the lines in his face seemed deeper. "We bring them truth," he said. "The world is changing. They may face it with us or without us. Fire does not ask permission to burn, nor darkness to fall," Daenerys murmured. For a moment, the only sound was the wind and the drumbeat of the oars far below. Then, faintly, she heard something else. The creak of rigging on a ship that was not Valyrian, the clatter of different armor, the distant, incredulous shout of a man who had never before seen a dragon. On the horizon, small and far, lights flickered along a jagged line of coast. Beacons, watchfires, or perhaps just fishermen at their work, unaware that history was bearing down upon them on stone keels and beating wings. Daenerys reached forward and laid a hand on Silverix's neck. The dragon rumbled deep in her chest, a sound that vibrated through Dany's bones. "Fly lower," she said softly. "Let them see us clearly. If this is to be the first meeting of Valyria and Westeros beneath an unbroken sky, let no man say he did not understand what stood above him." Silverix folded her wings and dropped, the air screaming past them as the fleet surged up to meet them. Men below shaded their eyes, mouths opening in awe or fear or both. Somewhere, on some cold wall half a world away, a boy looked up at a sky that seemed suddenly unfamiliar and felt the world tilt under his feet. The dragons of Valyria had come at last to the Sunset Lands, and the sea between old power and new lay burning in the last light of day. The first the people of kings landing knew of dragons was the darkening of the sky. Morning had come in its usual shabby way, seeping through the mist that lay on the Blackwater, glimmering on fish scales and slop in the gutters. The city stirred, fishwives shouting, butchers cursing, gold cloaks stamping cold from their boots. The stench rose with the sun. It was a day like any other until a shadow slid over Cobbler's Square and made every man in it look up at once. 36 dragons crossed the city in a rough, drifting formation, like storm clouds that had grown teeth and eyes. Some flew high, their shapes vague against the pale sky. Others skimmed low, the wind of their passage tearing laundry from lines and sending dogs howling. The sound of their wings was a dull, rhythmic thunder. Once, twice, they roared, and the noise rolled off the hills and walls and back again until it felt as if the whole city were trapped in a great stone drum. On the high balcony of the Red Keep, Robert Baratheon stood with one hand on the parapet, fingers digging into the stone. He looked smaller than usual in that moment, the bulk of him contained by the vastness of the sky. "7 hells," he said hoarsely. Beside him, Ned Stark squinted into the light, his gray eyes tracking the pale dragon at the head of the flock. It was smaller than some of the others, but it flew with a precision that made the rest seem clumsy, its wings hardly moving, each adjustment unhurried and exact. On its back, he could just make out a slim figure in armor that caught the sun in quick, bright flashes. "They could burn the whole city before we loosed a single arrow," Ned said quietly. "If that is their wish." Robert's jaw clenched. "If that is their wish, then they'll find out how many they can kill before someone drags them from the sky," he growled, but the bravado sounded thin, even to his own ears. His eyes followed the dragons as they banked over the bay and began to descend toward the anchorage, where the strange, black-hulled ships lay like a line of teeth along the water. "They come as envoys," Ned reminded him. "Even dragons can speak words before they breathe fire." "Envoys," Robert spat. "Envoys with wings and fire in their bellies." Yet he did not call for archers. Below them, the city boiled with fear and wonder. Men ran into the streets, craning their necks. Women dragged children indoors. The septons rang bells and shouted for calm, assuring their flocks that the 7 watched over them. On the steps of Baelor September, a fat septon dropped his incense bowl and fell to his knees, hands lifted toward the sky, as if the dragons had come to answer his prayers. Silverix shrieked once, a high, piercing sound that cut through the clamor. Her pale wings flared wide, catching the light, and then she folded them and dropped like a stone. At the last moment, her wings snapped open again, catching the air in a smooth, powerful stroke that sent a gale tearing across the anchorage, making the ships below strain at their moorings. On her back, Daenerys Targaryen leaned forward, feeling the dragon's muscles shift beneath her. The air was sharp with salt and smoke. As Silverix leveled out, Dany saw the city properly for the first time. The mass of it, the press of houses and people, the way it clung to its hill like something that had grown there, rather than been built. King's Landing was uglier than Valyria. There was no polish to it, no great avenues of fused stone or soaring towers shaped by dragonfire. Yet there was a life to it that her own city of black glass and ash-colored stone had never had. Laundry flapped from sagging lines. Children shrieked and chased one another in alleys even as their elders shouted at them to come inside. The smell was appalling. It was not a city made to impress gods. It was a city men had made for themselves, for good or ill. For a heartbeat, she wondered what it would look like in flames. Silverix hissed softly, and the thought slipped away like smoke. "Easy, girl," Daenerys murmured in Valyrian, resting a hand on the scaled arch of the dragon's neck. "They stare because they have never seen our like. Let them look their fill." They chose to meet in the outer courtyard, beneath the open sky. No maester needed to explain why. Robert might call it bravado. Let them see I do not hide under my own roof. But Ned guessed it was also fear of a different sort. If dragons chose to burn them, stone walls would only trap the heat. The courtyard had been cleared hastily. Servants and lesser courtiers lined the arcades, jostling for a view, while a double rank of gold cloaks and white-cloaked Kingsguard stood between the open gate and the base of the steps. Sunlight spilled down on them all, bright and indifferent. Silverix crouched just inside the gate, her pale hide gleaming. Chains like those used to tether warships lay slack between her collars and great iron rings set into the stone, more ceremony than restraint. Any man who thought such things could truly hold a dragon was a fool. Her head swung slowly, golden eyes flicking over the armored men, the banners, the bright flicker of Lannister crimson and gold above the rest. Daenerys stood a little before her, flanked by Vaeron and 3 other dragonlords. She had left her helm with its slender dragon horns somewhere behind her, letting her hair fall loose down her back. The blue of her scaled armor was deep enough to drink the light. She wore no visible weapons, though Ned suspected the buckles and clasps themselves were sharper than they appeared. The wind tugged at her hair as Robert descended the steps with Cersei on his arm and Ned at his side. The king's crown sat askew on his head, as if he had jammed it on in haste, but for once he did not seem to notice. His eyes were fixed on Dany. They were not kind eyes. "So," he said as he reached the bottom, his voice booming through the hush, "the Dragon Princess." The Valyrian delegation bowed, not deeply, not as Westerosi lords might to their king, but enough to acknowledge the form of his authority. Vaeron's bow was measured, his face impassive. Daenerys's was a fraction deeper, but when she straightened her gaze met Robert's without flinching. "Your Grace," she said. Her common tongue was clear, though there was a faint music in it, the echo of Valyrian vowels. "I bring you the greetings of Maresso Varloris, Archon of Valyria, and of the 40 families. We thank you for receiving us beneath your roof." Cersei's lip curled. "You brought your own roof," she said, glancing meaningfully at Silverix. A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the watching courtiers. Daenerys let it wash past her. "Dragons are more comfortable beneath open skies," she said. "And so, I am told, are kings with no wish to feel trapped." Robert's mouth twitched. Ned could not tell whether it was anger or reluctant amusement. "You speak boldly for a guest," he said. "In Valyria we speak plainly," Daenerys replied. "We have no time to waste on words that do not bite." Ned watched the exchange with a tightening in his chest. He saw, in the set of Robert's shoulders and the flaring of his nostrils, the battle not being fought here. The memory of another Targaryen prince, another dragon banner, another set of pale-haired, fine-boned royals who had thought themselves above the rest of the world. He could almost hear the clang of Rhaegar's armor, smell the dust and sweat of the trident. Robert's fingers flexed once, as if around the haft of a warhammer that was not there. "You will find we bite well enough in Westeros," he said roughly. "Say your piece, girl. Why is your empire suddenly so interested in our little corner of the world?" Vaeron stepped forward then, controlled and smooth. "Because the world grows smaller, your grace," he said, "and darker. Our priests have seen things in their fires. Our dreams are troubled. We come to offer alliance. Protection, if you will, against what moves in the far north." "You mean beyond our wall," Ned said. All eyes shifted to him. He felt the weight of them like cold fingers. "You know of it, then?" "We know it was raised for a reason," Daenerys said before Vaeron could speak. "We know that reason was not petty border disputes. Our seers see shadows stirring beyond it. A cold that does not end with dawn." She hesitated, then added, "I have dreamt of it myself." Cersei laughed softly. "Dreams. Our court is full of them. They cost nothing." "Your Grace," Pycelle began, fluttering forward. "This talk of omens and shadows." "Silence, Pycelle," Robert snapped. He did not look at the old maester. His eyes were still on Daenerys. "You come all this way to tell me ghost stories? We came to tell you that the age when your kingdoms could pretend the rest of the world did not exist is ending," Vaeron said, voice hardening. "We bring ships, dragons, and knowledge of an enemy older than any crown. We offer them if you will open your ports and your coffers. If you will let us stand beside you." "And if I will not?" Robert asked softly. Silverix shifted, her talons rasping on stone. Dragonfire flickered faintly between her teeth. Daenerys looked up at her, then back at the king. "Then you will stand alone," she said. "And when what lies beyond your wall comes, it will find you unready." They moved to the throne room because some rituals could not be performed under an open sky. Power, Robert believed, was as much about stone and shadow as it was about steel and blood. The great doors boomed shut behind the procession, cutting off the city's noise. The hall swallowed sound and light alike. the narrow windows casting long spears of brightness across the flagged floor. Daenerys walked the length of that hall with her head high. The Iron Throne was an ugly thing, all jagged edges and twisted metal. It made the black chair of Valyria look delicate by comparison. Yet there was a presence to it that she could not deny. Men had killed and died for that mound of ruined swords. Robert sat upon it as if it were a stool in some tavern. His legs were spread wide, his crown askew, one elbow thrown over the arm, a goblet in his fist despite the hour. Yet the longer she looked, the more she saw the tension in the set of his shoulders, the tightness at the corners of his mouth. Rhaegar died beneath his hammer, she thought. A prince of my bloodline, though so far removed we might have been separate species. No wonder his hands itch whenever he sees pale hair. Her own hair, loose about her shoulders, caught the thin light as she came to a halt at the foot of the steps. Behind her, Vaeron and the others arranged themselves in a half-circle. To the left, on the small council dais, Varys watched with an almost kindly expression, his soft hands folded. Peter Baelish lounged beside him, eyes half-lidded, as if all of this was of only passing interest. "Speak," Robert said again, more curtly this time. Daenerys folded her hands before her. "We ask that you open 3 of your ports, King's Landing, Oldtown, and White Harbor, to our fleets," she said. Her voice carried clearly. "We ask for the right to station garrisons in each to help defend them. In return, we will share our knowledge of dragonglass and how to forge it, our methods of war against the cold. We will send dragons to patrol your northern skies." A murmur ran through the gathered lords like a gust of wind. Garrison ports, foreign soldiers in their cities, dragons overhead, but not their own. "And the price?" Cersei asked coolly. "There is always a price." Daenerys did not look at her. "Second sons and daughters of your great houses sent to Valyria as wards," she said, "to learn, to serve as hostages against treachery and as bonds between our peoples. Trade privileges for Valyrian merchants. Tribute from those who would have our dragons fly to their defense first." Robert leaned forward, goblet forgotten. "Hostages," he said softly. "You ask me to send my blood to you in chains." "In silks, not chains," Vaeron corrected. "They would be treated with honor. Raised among dragonlords. They would learn arts your maesters have long forgotten." "Arts like burning cities?" Cersei said. "Arts like surviving," Daenerys answered. Ned felt the hall tighten, as if it were a living thing drawing breath. His hand found the pommel of his sword, more for comfort than from any thought of using it. The idea of Sansa in Valyria, sweet, trusting Sansa among those hard-eyed dragonlords, made his stomach clench. Robert's face had gone black. "You speak as if the world were already yours," he growled. "As if Westeros were some province to be carved up at your pleasure." Daenerys met his anger with something like sadness. "If we wanted you as a province, your grace," she said quietly, "we would not have brought only 36 dragons." The words hung in the air. There was a faint clink as someone swallowed too quickly and knocked their own chain. Ned stepped forward before Robert could explode. "If their priests and seers speak truth," he said, "if something moves beyond the wall that even dragons name an enemy, then we would be fools not to listen. Let us not bind ourselves with pride to die stubbornly in our own halls." Robert shot him a look that mixed gratitude and frustration. "And you would have us bend the knee to Valyria then?" he demanded. "Become their pretty client kingdom?" "No," Ned said. The word came out more sharply than he'd intended. "I would have us find a way to stand beside them without kneeling. We have our own strength, our own honor." Daenerys's gaze flicked to him. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, and she inclined her head by a hair's breadth. A recognition, perhaps, or simply acknowledgement that here was a man who did not tremble in the shadow of dragons. "Consider this," she said, turning back to Robert. "If we wished only to conquer, we would have come without warning. You would have seen our dragons only when your towers burned. Instead, we come before you in your hall under your laws to make an offer. Listen to what the world is telling you, Robert Baratheon. It is changing. You can rage at the tide, or you can learn to sail it. The godswood of the Red Keep was a sad little thing. Ned had thought it the first time he saw it, and the thought had not grown kinder with repetition. A few stunted oaks, a trickle of a stream, and one weirwood, its bark gray and tired, its red leaves sparse. The face carved into its trunk had been done by some southern hand, without love or understanding. The eyes were crude, the mouth a shallow gouge. Yet it was the only heart tree within 1,000 leagues, and so Ned came. He knelt in the damp earth, the smell of the city a faint tang beneath the green. Above the walls, the sky was deepening toward violet, and the first stars pricked through. Higher still, tiny black shapes wheeled, catching the last of the light. Even here, even in the godswood, there was no escaping the dragons. "Old gods," he said quietly, feeling faintly foolish, as he always did when he spoke aloud. "You have seen more than I have. You have watched winters come and go before there were men to name them. Tell me if I am a fool." The leaves rustled. It might have been the breeze. "Dragons at our gates," he went on. "An empire that has never fallen, asking for our sons and daughters as wards. My king would sooner throw them into the sea. My queen would sooner feed them to the dragons and be done. And yet," he exhaled, long and slow, "and yet I have seen the wall. I have felt the cold that lives there. If what their priests say is true, we may choke on our pride." He thought of Jon in the yard at Winterfell, wooden sword in hand, eyes intent. Of Robb's laugh, Arya's wild grin, Sansa's careful courtesy. He thought of Bran always climbing, forever reaching higher. If the world changed, what would become of them? Somewhere overhead, a dragon roared, the sound distant and muted. Ned looked up through the tangle of branches and glimpsed a pale shape sliding across the sky before it vanished behind the Red Keep's towers. "Winter is coming," he murmured. "We have said it so long we have forgotten it is a warning, not a boast." He bowed his head to the crude face. "If we must walk with dragons to see another spring, then show me how to do it without losing ourselves." The wind shifted, colder now, smelling of the bay and something else beneath it, something old. For a moment, it seemed to Ned that the carved eyes of the weirwood were not quite as crude as he had thought, that there was a glimmer of something deep within them, sharp and aware. Then the feeling passed. He straightened, brushed the dirt from his knees, and turned back toward the castle, where the king would be waiting to rage about dragons and pride and offers that tasted of chains. The small council chamber had never seemed so aptly named. The air felt tight and close, thick with the smell of wax and ink and too many people breathing the same frustrations. The map of Westeros lay spread across the table, its edges curling. Someone, Baelish likely, had placed 3 little dragon tokens upon it, one at King's Landing, one at Oldtown, one at White Harbor, like a child's game. Robert glared at them as if mere anger might make them sprout legs and walk back into the box. "They ask me to hand them my kingdom in pieces," he snarled. "Ports, garrisons, hostages. They dress it up in pretty words, but that's what it comes to." "They ask you to share your kingdom," Varys corrected mildly. "There is a difference, your grace. Share like a whore shares her bed," Cersei said. "Pay enough, and you get what you want." Baelish smiled his thin smile. "Some would say paying is more honorable than simply taking," he murmured. "Enough." Robert slammed a fist down on the table, making the inkpots jump. "I did not fight a war to trade one set of dragonlords for another." Ned sat with his hands folded, fingers laced together so tightly the knuckles ached. "You fought a war because Aerys burned your father and brother alive," he said. "Because of Rhaegar and Lyanna. The Valyrians who stand in our courtyard now are not those men. They carry the same name," Robert growled. "Targaryen, dragons, pale hair and pretty words." He swallowed wine as if it were water. "Do you ask me to forget everything they did?" "No," Ned said. "I ask you to remember what might be coming. If the wall falls, the wrongs of your youth will not matter to the dead. They will kill Baratheon and Targaryen alike." The room stilled at that. Even Cersei's expression flickered, for just an instant. They say they will send dragons to the wall, Pycelle wheezed, twisting his beard. The very notion. He shook his head, yet his eyes were bright, avid. Imagine the tales, the songs. Imagine the cost, Cersei said. Our sons and daughters in their hands. Your blood, Robert. Joffrey's face rose unbidden in Ned's mind. The tilt of his chin, the cruelty in his eyes when he thought no one of consequence was watching. A coldness slid down Ned's spine at the thought of that boy with dragons at his beck. Yet the alternative was worse. No aid, no forewarning, just winter and the dark. Send them north, he said quietly. All eyes swung to him. Send their princess and a handful of her dragons to the wall, Ned continued. Let them see for themselves what stirs in the snow. Let them speak with the men of the Night's Watch, with the wildlings. If they find the danger they speak of, we will have proof enough that this is more than a play for ports. If they do not, we lose little. A few dragons gone from our doorstep for a time. And if she takes offense at being sent to the ends of the world? Cersei asked. If Valyria sees it as an insult, then they can hardly claim they came only to help us, Baelish said, stroking his little beard. If a simple journey north wounds their pride, what would happen when we refused them a port? Varys steepled his hands. It could be useful, he said, to have a Valyrian princess see our wall, to have her hear our stories of the long night. Empires do not like to admit ignorance. Show them something they do not know, and they will lean closer. Robert stared down at the map. He looked, Ned thought, very briefly, very tired. The years hung on him suddenly like weights on a man's shoulders. I am not sending my son anywhere near those people, he said at last. But if the dragon girl wants to go freeze her pretty arse off on our wall, I won't stop her. He jabbed a finger at the little dragon token perched at King's Landing. It toppled and rolled, clinking against the table's edge. Tell her this, we will not put her chains around our ports. We will not hand her our children, but we will give her leave to ride north. If the North's lord agrees to host her, Ned's mouth was dry. Robb will do what is needed, he said. Winterfell has weathered dragons before. And if she does not come back? Robert asked. Then Valyria will have lost a princess and some dragons, Cersei said coldly. And we will have lost nothing but a problem. The silence that followed that was a tangible thing. Ned looked at her and saw, for a moment, the steel beneath the gold. The chamber they gave Daenerys was meant to impress. High ceilings painted with faded stars, hangings of crimson velvet embroidered with lions and stags, a bed big enough for 3 people or one very large ego. The floor was smooth, cool stone beneath her bare feet. She had dismissed her attendants hours ago. Even Vaeron had taken his leave, after a long, low-voiced argument that curled around them like smoke. He had not been pleased by Robert's answer. Ports refused. Hostages denied. Instead, a polite banishment to the far north, where the wind itself tried to kill you. If they insult us this way and we accept it, we look weak, he had hissed in Valyrian. They will think they can dictate the terms of our aid. If we refuse, she had replied, we look inflexible, blind. They are afraid, Vaeron. They feel cornered. Men strike out when they feel cornered. Good, he had said. Let them strike. Let them remind themselves what their swords feel like in their hands. They have grown soft, these kings without dragons. She had fixed him with a steady look until some of the heat left his eyes. We came here to prevent the end of the world, not to hasten it for pride's sake, she had said. If that means swallowing an insult, I will swallow it. And if the North holds the wall and the truth of these omens, then that is where I must go. He had gone, eventually, muttering about archons and priests and stubborn girls who thought themselves wiser than centuries. The door had shut heavily behind him. Now Daenerys stood alone at the window, the night wind tugging at her thin shift. The city sprawled below, still alive even in darkness. Light leaked from tavern doors and upper windows. A dog barked. Somewhere, a woman laughed. The sound edged, Silverix slept on the ledge just beyond, her coils a pale knot in the darkness. Every so often she twitched, teeth clicking softly, as if she hunted something in her dreams. "What do you dream of?" Dany murmured. "Ash and bone and hot blood? Or do you see what I see, somewhere beyond all the stone?" She closed her eyes. Sleep had been poor the last weeks, full of jagged fragments. A wall of ice, a sky full of strange stars, a boy with gray eyes standing on a precipice, looking out into a dark that wanted to look back. When the dream took her this time, it came like a falling. Cold. It was the first thing. Not the sharp, biting cold of a northern winter's day, but a deep, implacable chill that seemed to live in the bones of the world. It rose up through the soles of Dany's bare feet, flowed into her ribs, settled behind her eyes. When she opened them, she was standing on ice. The wall reared around her, a frozen cliff that climbed into the sky. Its surface was not smooth as she had imagined, but ridged and pitted, layered upon layered, like the rings in a tree. The air tasted clean and empty. Breath plumed in white clouds before her face. She wore no cloak, no armor. Her shift fluttered around her knees, thin as spider silk. Yet though she knew she should be shivering, she felt no pain. Only the cold and the sense of something vast just out of sight. A sound came then, the creak of leather, the crunch of boots on packed snow. She turned. He stood a little way down the rampart, his back to her. Black cloak, black padded jerkin, sword at his hip. Dark hair. He leaned on the crenellation, looking north, as if the stones themselves would tell him what lay beyond. "Jon Snow," she said. He turned, frowning. His gray eyes widened as he saw her, bare and breathless and impossibly there. For a moment, they simply stared at one another. The wind plucked at his cloak, at her hair, made the loose strands dance. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was rough as if unused. "Daenerys," she said. "Daenerys Targaryen." He stared at her as if she had named herself the moon. "Targaryen," he echoed. "You're a long way from King's Landing, my lady." "I am not there," she said slowly. "Not yet." She looked around. The wall under her feet, the drop beside them dizzying, the endless white plain beyond, broken only by the dark line of the haunted forest. "This is a dream." He gave a humorless half-smile. "If it is, it's a poor one. Dreams should be warmer. There are worse things than cold." She stepped closer. No footprints marked the frost. "Do you feel it? The dark beyond the trees?" His smile faded. "A man would have to be blind not to," he said. "Or a fool." "There is a difference?" she asked, genuinely curious. He huffed something that might have been a laugh. Then the wind shifted, and for an instant she saw something in his eyes, recognition, though they had never met, as if some thread had twitched between them and pulled tight. "You're not really here," he said. "I've had dreams sometimes. A crow with 3 eyes, a boy falling, fire in the snow, but never someone speaking back." He looked past her, over her shoulder, and his frown deepened. "Do you hear that?" She turned. The horizon was a line of gray. Above it, the sky darkened. There was a sound on the edge of hearing, like distant ice cracking or 1,000 tiny bells. Then she saw them. Tall shapes moving through the trees, pale and thin, metal glinting. Their eyes were pinpricks of blue fire. "White Walkers," she whispered. The word tasted of old tales. He drew his sword. The steel looked very small against that advancing storm. "We will need fire," she said. He glanced at her, and for a moment, in the reflection of his eyes, she saw herself differently. Not as a barefooted girl in a shift, but astride Silverix, dragonfire pouring from her mount's jaws, the wall's ice face turning to screaming steam. Then the dream folded inward like a closing hand. The cold surged up, blinding, and she woke with a cry in the dark of her borrowed chamber. The sheets tangled around her legs and her heart thundering. Outside the window, Silverix stirred, her own eyes opening suddenly, pupils thin slits in a sea of gold. "Did you sleep?" Samwell Tarly asked. Jon Snow blew on the surface of his mug and watched the steam curl. The air at Castle Black always smelled of wood smoke and old stone, and men packed too close together. But today there was something sharper beneath it, a scent like metal and distant snow. Enough, he said. It was not quite a lie. He had slept. Sleep had only been less restful than wakefulness. They stood on the walkway above the yard, their backs to the rough parapet. Below, men of the Night's Watch shuffled through their early drills, grunting and cursing. The ring of steel on steel cracked the cold air. Above them, the wall rose, a constant, looming presence. Sam followed his glance northward and shuddered, tugging his cloak tighter. "You're doing it again," he said, looking at it as if it might answer you. "Maybe it will," Jon said. "One day." Sam gave him a sidelong look. "You sound like our Lord Commander." "Old Bear looks at it like a problem to be solved," Jon said. "I look at it like something from a story." He hesitated. "Last night, I dreamed of it. I was up there. I could feel the cold in my teeth." He did not mention the barefoot girl with silver gold hair, the way her eyes had met his over the endless drop. "We're always up there," Sam pointed out. "That's where we stand watch." This was different. Jon could not quite put words to it. There was someone else. And something coming out of the trees. I could hear bells. He shook his head. "It doesn't matter. A dream is a dream. We have enough to worry about awake." As if summoned by his words, a horn sounded, a single long note that rolled off the stones and up against the wall. The men in the yard paused, heads turning. "One blast," Sam said, swallowing. "Rangers returning. Benjen." Jon's heart gave a strange, hopeful lurch. His uncle had been gone too long without word. But when the gates opened, it was not Benjen Stark who rode in. It was a knot of ragged rangers, half their number missing, their horses blown and eyes haunted. Frost rimed their beards, though the morning was not yet so cold as that. Jeor Mormont met them in the yard, questions already on his lips. Jon leaned forward unconsciously, trying to catch their words. "Dead things?" one man rasped. "Eyes like cold fire." He did not hear the rest. The mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the stone at his feet, hot liquid bleeding into the frost. Sam jumped. "Jon!" "I know," Jon said hoarsely, though he did not know what it was he claimed. Only that somewhere, far to the south, a girl who called herself Daenerys Targaryen had woken from the same cold, and dragons had shifted uneasily in their sleep. The raven from King's Landing arrived at Winterfell on a day when the snow fell in lazy, contented flakes, the sort that promised to linger but not yet suffocate. The yard was quiet. The young men were at their drills, the small folk at their tasks. It was, Catelyn thought as she watched the birdland, a good day. Those were rare enough to notice. The seal on the message was heavy, bearing the crowned stag. Robb broke it with careful fingers, his brows knitting as he read. "Well?" Theon asked, leaning forward with the restless energy of one who had never had to bear the weight of any words he read. "Does the fat king want more grain? More men?" Robb's lips twitched. "He wants us to host a delegation," he said. "From Valyria." The words sat in the air like a dropped stone. Even the fire seemed to crackle more quietly. "Valyria," Sansa breathed. Stories leaped into her eyes. Tales of dragonlords and sorcerers, of cities that glowed like embers. Real Valyrians? With dragons? "Yes," Robb said grimly. "With dragons." Arya, perched on the arm of a chair despite Catelyn's earlier scolding, grinned. "I want to see one," she said. "A real dragon, not a carving or a picture." "You'll be lucky if all we see is their shadows," Catelyn said, taking the letter from Robb's hand. Her eyes scanned Ned's familiar, spare script. He had added his own lines beneath Robert's formal command. "Robb, the Dragonlords have come. They ask much. I have convinced Robert to offer little. They may send their princess and some of her beasts north to see our wall. It may be insult or opportunity. I do not know which yet, Treat them with courtesy, but trust slowly. There is more to this than ports and trade. The old powers stir. Tell Bran to climb less. Eddard Stark. Her throat tightened for reasons that had little to do with dragons. She read the lines again, hearing his voice between them. The old powers stir. Mother! Robb watched her. He was too young to look so much like a man. We will do as your father asks, she said. We will host them. We will remember our courtesies. And we will keep our eyes open. She folded the letter carefully. Winterfell is strong. We have faced dragons before. They burned Torrhen's army to ash, Theon said cheerfully. That's why they called him the king who knelt. And because he had the wisdom to kneel, Catelyn said sharply. There is no shame in bending when standing will break you. I won't kneel, Arya muttered. Not to dragonlords. Not to anyone. Sansa sighed. You'd kneel if father told you to. I'd kneel if a dragon's teeth were this close to my head, Theon said, grinning. He held up thumb and forefinger a hair's breadth apart. Robb looked toward the high windows, where snowflakes clung for a moment before melting. If they come to see the wall, he said slowly, maybe they will see what father has always tried to make the South remember, that there are worse things than old grudges between kings. He did not know that at that moment, far to the south, a girl with silver gold hair was telling her dragon the same thing. The morning they set out for the north, the city wore a different face. Mist lay thick over the streets, blurring edges, softening lines. The towers of the Red Keep rose out of it like islands. In the dragon yard, the air was cool enough that Daenerys could see her breath when she spoke, a novelty in a life lived under a burning sky. She wore her traveling armor, plainer than the ceremonial scales she had donned for their first audience. The leather was supple, dyed a dark, muted blue that would not show dust so quickly. Her sword hung at her hip, not for show now, but because the road ahead of them was long and any road could turn treacherous. Silverix shook herself as the grooms unhooked her chains, sending a spray of fine mist from her pale wings. The other two dragons chosen for the journey, a lean bronze male named Zeradix and a green female called Meraxes in an echo of ancient names, snorted and stamped, impatient. Vaeron adjusted the clasps of his own harness, his expression still sour. You should not go yourself, he muttered for the 20th time. A princess of Valyria does not ride at the whim of a usurper king. I go at the Archon's command, she reminded him, and at the priest's urging. They wanted dragons to see the wall. I am dragon enough. He gave her a look that held fatigue as well as frustration. You are young enough to think that is clever, he said. I am old enough to remember that dragons can be caught in nets they do not see coming. Then watch for the nets, she said. If there are any, you will scent them before I. And if there is truth in my dreams, in the priest's visions, we will need to know it before we decide whether to risk more than 3 dragons on this land. At the gate of the yard, Eddard Stark stood with Barristan Selmy at his side. He looked tired, but there was a steadiness in him that reminded her of the weirwood in his sad little gods, wood rooted, enduring. Princess, he said as she approached. Lord Stark, she replied. You carry the north in your eyes. I begin to see why your kings chose gray as their color. A poor choice if you like bright banners, he said, but a useful one if you must see storms. He nodded toward the dragons. You are certain of this journey? The king would not forbid it, but neither would he mourn if you stayed. Your wall troubled my sleep before ever I saw your city, she said. Now that I have stood beneath your throne and smelled the fear under the perfumes, I am more certain than before. If there is a storm coming, better to see its face than hear of it in whispers. He studied her for a moment. My son will receive you at Winterfell, he said. He is young, but he learns quickly. And the men of the Night's Watch will show you what they have seen. I only ask one thing of you in return. Ask, she said. Look honestly, Ned said. If you see nothing beyond tales, say so. If you see something that makes even dragons uneasy, say that too. I have had enough of kings and councils lying to themselves. She inclined her head. "Honesty is a hard habit to keep in Valyria," she said. "Our halls are full of smoke. It is easy to forget what the sky looks like." She glanced up. The mist was thinning, the first pale smear of sun struggling through. "Perhaps your north will remind me." Barristan bowed. "If the wall does not impress you, princess, then nothing in this world will," he said. "I have seen it once. I still dream of it." "Then we will compare dreams when I return," she replied. "If I return," a small, treacherous part of her added, but she did not let the thought touch her face. Instead, she turned to Silverix, laid her palm flat against the dragon's warm neck, and swung herself up into the saddle with practiced ease. The yard fell strangely silent as the dragons spread their wings. Men shaded their eyes. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city grumbled and moved, unaware that its future and the world's were lifting off its stones. "Fly," Daenerys whispered. Silverix leapt, the ground dropping away in a rush of wind. Zeredix and Meraxes followed, their wings beating the mist to tatters. The red keep dwindled beneath them. The bay opened ahead like a wound of gray steel. Beyond it, invisible yet, lay rivers and forests, holds and halls, the long road to Winterfell and the white line of the wall beyond. Far to the north, Jon Snow stood on the ramparts, the taste of last night's dream still in his mouth. The horn on the gate tower sounded once, twice, its notes thin in the cold air. He looked up, frowning, at a sky that seemed emptier than it had the day before, and wondered why it felt as if something vast had just turned its gaze toward him.